Boker Tov Kal Kadosh. We're going to be continuing on Daf Bet Amud Aleph 12a1. Okay, if you remember, we were talking about, right, the concept of does a person make a mistake in testimonies? So we brought down a machloke whether a person would make a mistake between 1 hour and a second hour, only by a few minutes, or only it was really meant it was in an hour and a few minutes. That was the two different machlokot. Okay, so this is where we're starting on Yud Bet Amud Aleph. Okay, Rava with an Aleph is going to ask a question on this. Azal Ravuna bered Rav Yehuda amra lishmatata kameh de Rava. So came Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehuda, and he said this braita, right, that which Abaye said in front of Rava. Amar, so Rava comes and he says, 1 second. Yeah, remember, what did Abaye say? There was an Ika de Amre, there was another version. Remember, there were a few different versions in the Gemara. There was Amar Abaye, and then there was an Ika de Amre. Ika de Amre means that there are those who say, which means there's another version, that Abaye said, Keshetinsa lomar divrei Rabbi Meir adam toeh b'mashu, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, adam toeh b'sha'ah mashu. That means according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, a person will only make a mistake by a few minutes. And according to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, a person will make a mistake by an hour and a few minutes. Right? That means according to everybody, the few minutes is there. That's for sure, because one of them said 3 and one of them said 5. Right? But the question is, were they making a mistake in an hour and a few minutes? Or was it only just a few minutes? Okay? Was the one that said the 3 was the end of the 3rd hour, and the one that said 5 was the beginning of the 5th hour, so therefore it was only going to be a few minutes. So says the Gemara as follows. Okay? It says like this. Amar, Uma ilu daikinan behane sahade. Right? So he says like this. If right now we were going to be medayek, right, in the nisayon in order to divide the testimonies, right? So then we could say the hayde kamar shalosh betchilat shalosh. That which the chachamim come and they say it's going to be the beginning of the 3rd hour. The 3rd hour means the beginning of the 3rd hour. Okay, and that which the Gemara says, okay, and that which the Gemara says 5 is the end of the 5th hour. Okay, vehavia. So then it's considered edut mucheshet, velo katzlinan, and we do not kill. Which means whenever we're going to have edut mucheshet, okay, so therefore we do not actually kill the defendant. What is the difference between edut mucheshet and edim zomemim? So the difference is edut mucheshet means is that they were not disproven by the fact that they weren't there. It's just that there's discrepancies, and the discrepancy is big enough that we don't actually take out the verdict. So for example, let's say Ronen and I come and they testify that Mr. X killed someone, chas v'shalom. So now we both come to Bedin, we start testifying. But I say that the guy was wearing a white shirt, and he says he was wearing a pink shirt, right, or a blue shirt. So now we both agree that he killed. We both agreed on the same day, on the same time, on the same venue, on the same everything. But there was a difference. It was a dum mucheshet. There was a difference in a certain detail. So now to kill, we're not going to kill the defendant. Why? Because it's just there's something wrong here. You understand? It wasn't a small detail that whether the top button was open or not. We're talking about a big detail that technically speaking, we should have paid attention to. Yeah, it could have been someone else. We should have paid attention to. You understand? Even nowadays, right, the police, it's very important that they pay attention to everything. Whether it's, did they have a bag in their hand? What color was the bag? Did they come? There was a guy that he was such a chacham, right? He was convicted and he was sent to jail because when he went to the court case, he was wearing the exact same shirt that he used when he actually went to steal. So they had, like the pictures of the guy when he went, and then he comes into the court with the exact same shirt. So Chamor, the guy, he was actually convicted, right? Because at the end of the day, certain things, was like the biggest proof. So it says like this. However, though, so what it is that now, since there's a difference in time between the 3rd hour and the 5th hour, it's considered edut mucheshet, which means that the testimony is going to be a difference in the testimonies, and therefore we do not kill the defendant. So he says, what? Do you think that now we could actually come and start killing misafek? Which means that even if there's going to be a difference of even an hour and a few minutes, at the end of the day, right, are we going to say that it's not considered hachasha? For sure it's considered hachasha. It's considered that there's discrepancies in the testimony. But Rahman Amar, the Torah says, v'shafetu ha'edah v'itzilu ha'edah, which means that there's a mitzvah on the bedin that not only to come to be shofet, to come and to judge the case, but also v'itzilu ha'edah, Veitzilu Adam means that we have to actually try to come and make him that he's actually innocent and not guilty, right? That we don't want to kill him, which means that some people come and they think, Betin, they just want to give it. No, the opposite. The Bedin, they want to come and they actually want to make that the person's actually innocent and that he's not guilty. You understand? So he says, so for sure, the fact that we're going to come and say this, so therefore we're going to say that he wanted actually to come and say that it was Meuchar el-Sofa. So therefore, we're going to say that there was a mistake. Okay? So he comes and he says, Ela Amar Rava, but rather Rava comes and he says, the Divrei Rabbi Meir, Adam toeh shte shaot chaser mashu. And according to the Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Adam toeh shalosh shaot chaser mashu. So it comes out not like this. What do we just say? Abaye went and he said, right, that the machloka between them was going to be a very, very small amount to do with whether it's going to be an hour and a few minutes or just a few minutes. Now, the fact that a person could make a mistake in a few minutes, that everybody could agree, correct? Everybody here agrees that a person could make a mistake in a few minutes because it's obvious. I'm saying we ourselves, right? Somebody comes and he tells me, right, that he comes at, at 6 o'clock, right? And the other guy comes and he says, no, he came at 6:20. So a person could make a mistake, right, in minutes, saying it's obvious. Here we're talking about now an hour and a few minutes. So that's already, somebody comes and he says he came here at 5:15 and really it's 6:15 or 6:20, saying that's already an hour and a few minutes. That's a little bit more, but that's also the machloket. You understand? But now here, all of a sudden now Rava is changing the machloket between them. And Rava actually comes and he says, but rather the machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is, does a person make a mistake in 2 hours minus a little bit, or in 3 hours minus a little bit? Okay, so therefore, when a person comes and he says between 3 and 5, that's 2 hours. But do we say the person made a mistake only by the 2 hours minus a little bit? Or do we say no, that it could even go between 3 hours and a little bit? The Divrei Rabbi Meir, according to the words of Rabbi Meir, Adam to'eh shte shaot chaser mashu, a person could make a mistake in 2 hours minus a little bit. Why? Ma'aseh ki hava, what was the case exactly? O betchilat shtayim, o besof shalosh. Whether it was the beginning of the second hour or the end of the third hour. Dechad minayhu katahe, and one of them are making a mistake. Shte shaot chaser mashu, which is basically 2 hours less than something. So their edut is still kayam. Okay, therefore it's not considered hachasha. Right? That means basically, one more time, a person comes and he says 2 o'clock, and the other person says at the end of the third hour, which is basically 4 o'clock. Okay? Because when I say 3, I meant the end of the third. So therefore, there's a 2-hour gap. So he says, in such a case, since the difference between them is 2 hours minus a little bit, okay, because when he said the end, it didn't mean mamash, 4 o'clock, it meant 3:50 something, whatever it is. So therefore, what happens is that that's not considered a chasha. It's not considered contradicting. And therefore, you're allowed to come and you're allowed to accept their testimony.
What does this one say? What does this one say?
One more time. We have a machloke between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, now we are trying to analyze and see what exactly is the machloke between them. So yesterday's daf finished off by bringing Abaye. Abaye came and he said that the difference between them was either that Rabbi Meir comes and he says a person can make a mistake in a few minutes, but more than a few minutes, a person does not make a mistake. And therefore, according to him, the entire time of the Gemara was only, that's what it says over here, the Maaseh was the end of the third hour, the second hour, or the beginning of the third hour. So therefore, if I say the end of the second hour, it means 2:50 something. The beginning of the third hour means 3:05 or whatever it is. So therefore, the difference between them is only a few minutes. That's Shitat Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, no, it's an hour and something. So what is the case according to Rabbi Yehuda? The case is, or the end of the third hour, or the beginning, right, of the fifth hour. So at the end of the third hour, right, is let's say 3:50 something.
Because
the beginning. So no, so that in that case, it was going to be 1 hour and something. Okay, 1 hour and a few minutes. Then comes, right, and we asked a question against him. The question that we asked him against him is that we have a mitzvah to save the defendant, which means the betin don't only have a mitzvah, right? Yes, that's what we're doing. Only in death. Obviously.
No, I mean,
of course, only in death.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that in money. Because if I'm going to save you from money, so then you're going against me, and you go against me, so therefore, it's only in death.
All we're doing right now is determining between two different rabbis what is the
What is it? What is
time?
considered exactly? No, no. What is the time?
Margin of error.
Very good.
The margin
Exactly.
of error
That's the best
that-
words of using
The
it.
margin of error that the deem have in order to fall under the discrepancy whether he could be guilty or not guilty.
Exactly.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's all that it is. You said the words perfectly.
No,
Margin
but,
of error.
But that means that if you go outside of the margins of errors, that means
That's it. Edut mucheshet. Edut mucheshet means
you don't
that
touch
it's not that they were proven to be zomemim. Zomemim means false witnesses. They weren't proven false. False means, how could you come and testify that this happened here? You were in New York.
Okay.
You know, so obviously you didn't testify. So that's called false witnesses. That's a din zomim. This is exactly not missing. There's a detail which is contradicting.
Okay. Now,
Which, because of the contradiction between them, everything else was perfect. But because of that detail, I just can't follow suit.
so now we're measuring if it falls within a certain lapse of time. That means that we can judge him guilty, and if it's too much,
Then
then
no.
we save him.
Exactly.
Is that-
Exactly.
Okay.
So now the second part of the Gemara was Rava. Rava comes and he argues on Abaye. If you remember, Abaye was yesterday's daf. So Abaye said the difference between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda was either a few minutes or an hour and a few minutes. Comes Rava and he says, no. According to Rabbi Meir, it's 2 hours minus a few minutes, and that is still a person could make discrepancy. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's 3 hours minus a few minutes. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain. According to Rabbi Meir, because again, every single time that we keep on saying whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever it is, we have to actually say what was the case then. So the Gemara says, "L'divrei Rabbi Meir," according to the words of Rabbi Meir, "Adam toeh shtei shaot chaser mashu." A person will make a mistake with 2 hours minus a few minutes. Maaseh kiava. So what was the case? O betchilat shtayim o besof shalosh. The beginning of the second hour, or the end of the third hour. So therefore, how many hours are we talking about? 2 hours. Betchilat shtayim besof shalosh. Betchilat shtayim means, let's say 2:05 or whatever it is, or 2:01. And so it's a little bit, exactly, it's a little bit less than 2 hours. The chaminayut katayim, one person is making a mistake. So therefore, that shtei shaot chaser mashu, it's still going to be good. It's a good testimony. That's according to Shitat Rabbi Meir.
Sorry, just one more thing. And there's two rabbanim that said two different versions, and now we're just trying to interpret how each one said it. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Adam toeh shalosh shaot chaser mashu. A person makes a mistake 3 hours minus a few minutes. So then what was the case? It had to be the beginning of the third hour and the end of the fifth hour. Okay? So therefore, beginning of the third hour, so you have the third hour, fourth hour, and fifth hour was the end of the fifth hour. So it's basically 5 hours, 3 hours minus a few minutes.
So seven, the beginning of 7, and the end is 10.
Well, okay, took another case, but the Gemara brought down the beginning of 3 and the end of 5. You're right, the same thing. The beginning of 7 and the end of 10, same thing. No, but we're just using the Gemara. What?
5, 7, and 10 is not the
No, you're right. No, but that's going to be 4 hours.
So
3 and 5. Usually give the case to the Gemara. Why are you going
3
away?
o'clock?
3 o'clock, the beginning of 3 and the end of 5. Okay?
Almost
This-
2 hours.
Which is basically almost 3 hours. 3 hours minus a little bit. Okay? So one of them is making a mistake. Okay, fine. So now the Gemara is going to ask on this, between this shita, the machloka between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. So now we're going to ask a question from the beginning of the next Mishnah. From the beginning of the previous Mishnah. Okay? Which means like this. Tonight we learned in the Mishnah. Hayu botkin oto, right? This is the Mishnah that we just brought down previously. Okay? So it is the Mishnah of Sanhedrin. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Hayu botkin oto b'sheva chakirot. Meaning they used to come and they used to investigate the witnesses. They used to cross-examine. That's the word in English. Right? With 7 different types of chakirot. 7 types of questions, investigations. Be'ezu shavua. Yeah, with which year of the Shemitah? Be'ezu shana. With which year? Yeah, which means which maksor in the Shemitah. Be'ezu chodesh. With which month? Be'kama b'chodesh. In which day of the month? Be'ezu yom. Which day of the week? Be'ezu sha'ah. In which hour of the day? Be'ezu makom. In which place? Okay, so basically these are all, right, the questions that we start asking. These are called bedikot. Utnan, then we learned over there, ma ben chakirot lebedikot. What's the difference between a chakira and a bedika? Bedika is to check, right? Bedikat chametz.
Yeah.
Chakira is more to cross-examine. They want to start. So chakirot, amar echamen en yodea, edutam betela. If right now we're talking about the chakirot, so if I come and I say, I don't know, and we are dealing with chakirot, which the Gemara here does not actually mention what are the chakirot. But if we right now a person comes because the chakirot are much more vital, right? They're much more important to the case. So right now, if a person comes and he says, "I don't know," the edut is batel. Bedikot afilu shnehem omrim enu yodim, edutan kayemet. Which means, imagine right now you have a case, you have two witnesses, you have to cross them and examine each one. So you do bedikot and chakirot. So the bedikot was very, very general, really. The bedikot was, which machzor of the Shemitah, which year, which month, which date, which place. If one of them says, "I don't know," or even both of them says, "I don't know," it's still okay. Chakirot, no. The chakirot, one of them says, "I don't know," that's it, out.
The word bedikot means to verify. And chakirot is investigate.
Yes.
So one is more spicy than the other.
Exactly, chakirot.
So the light one is...
exactly, that's bedikot. Yeah, that's okay. Bedikot. Okay? So we asked the question, Maishna chakirot or Maishna bedikot? Right? What's the difference between them? At the end of the day, if both of them are required from the Torah and they're a prerequisite for accepting testimony, so why is it now that you're much more lenient in bedikot and chakirot? So we said chakirot, any yodea, eduta betela, dehavya la, edut she'afshad ata yachol lazimah. Bedikot, right? Edut she'ata yachol lazimahi. Which means he says very, very simple. He says what happens is that, right? This was the Sheva Chakirot. The 7 Chakirot were about the time, place, and all these things. Why was it so important in the Chakirot? If you don't know the venue, or you don't know the day of the week, or you don't know the time, or you don't know the season, so then what happens is that I can never disprove it. Because one of the ways to make you or to disprove you is what? Is I'm going to come and I'm going to say, "Listen, what are you talking about?" Right? What?
Prove them to be wrong.
Yeah, disprove. Yeah. Right? So one of the ways to disprove you is that I'm going to come and I'm going to say, right, that what are you talking about that you were in Miami on December 3rd, right? Whatever it is. Where were you? Where were you? You were in New York. So what are you talking about? Now, if I'm going to tell you which day of the week, I don't remember. So now I'm going to come and I'm going to tell you, yeah, but you were in New York on Tuesday. So it must have been Wednesday. So I can never disprove you. But you were in New York on the 3rd. Okay, so it must have been the 4th. I told you I don't remember. So therefore, chakirot are so vital that even if one of them says, "I don't remember" on the chakirot, and that was the 7 chakirot, the day of the week, right, the day of the month, right, the hour, the place, the venue, so then there's nothing. It doesn't hold. You throw it out. Yeah, why? I can never disprove you. So if I can never disprove you, that's it. Now, if it's to do with chasha, right, to do with the other one, right, even if they're going to say, "We don't know," you could still be mazimotim, you could still disprove them by telling you were somewhere else. So you're right, you didn't remember now what type of a shirt that he had. Fine, but you just told me you were there on December 3rd. You were somewhere else on December 3rd.
I didn't understand. Can you re-explain this?
One more time. The Gemara says, right, what's the difference between chakirot and bedikot? Chakirot were more integral. The reason why chakirot were more integral is because if I don't remember the venue or the time and place, I can never disprove you. Disprove you means I can never make you into edim zomimim. Because I'm going to tell you, right, Ronen, you just testify which day, I don't remember. No, which day of the week, I don't remember. So then I'm going to tell you, okay, fine, but in Tuesday, right, or today's Thursday. And Thursday, you were in New York. So, okay, so it must have been Wednesday. I can never disprove you. If you tell me it's Wednesday, Wednesday's Wednesday. If I show you the plane ticket and you were in New York on Wednesday, Kaddish, that's it, I disproved you. But if you forget one of these chakirot, that's it. So therefore, chakirot, it's annulled. You don't remember the chakirot, outside. There's nothing more to talk about.
You cannot be an ed.
You cannot be an ed. They throw the testimony outside. So says the Gemara, now if you're going to come and tell me that people make a mistake in the time of the day, chakirot dezu sha'anami. So then, one second, even when the edim are going to come and they say, be'ez shah, which time, edut she'ata yachol lazimahi, de'ami katina. He says, one second, even with that, you can't disprove them. Because I'm going to tell you, what are you talking about? At 3 o'clock, you were downtown Miami? You were in Surfside. You're going to say, you're right, it was at 5 o'clock. I could still get there at 5 o'clock, right? I could still get there. So then, you can never disprove me. So then how do you say that a person can make such a mistake? So answers the Gemara, Tiavinan lehu hule tautaihu. Even the chakira of which hour is it, you could make it into become edut that you could actually disprove. He says, why? because we give them, according to the Edim Rishonim, all the time in order to make the mistake, which means the second group of witnesses, they could come and they could also be Mezim the Edim Rishonim on the exact same thing about the entire time that the first one mentioned, right? And also the other hour as well, which means imagine right now, we both come to testify in Bedin. And we come and we say, listen, the murder or whatever it was that happened, it was at 3 p.m. And all of a sudden, right, comes Amichai and the other Ronin, and they come to disprove us and say, what are you talking about? Right? You guys were with us, right, at 4 o'clock or at 2 o'clock or whatever it was. So the Bedin could have said, listen, you're not Edim Zomim. Why? You say 3, I say 4. What's the problem? No. Just like by us, the first group of witnesses, we have a margin of error in time, which means that, for example, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is that we're talking about, 3 hours, according to which Shita, whether it's Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, which Shita, whether it's Rava or Abaye, whichever one that it is, so too the Edim Zomimim, the ones that are making the Edim Zomimim, they also have this margin of error. And therefore, they also are able to come and to make this mistake as well, which means that they could also come and say, you guys were with us at this time, and we're going to say, it was at the beginning or it was at the end, because they could also make that margin of error. So we're not only just giving it to the first group of witnesses, we're giving it also to the second group of witnesses, which are disproving the first group of witnesses. Okay?
All we're doing here is trying to find out whether these edim are for real or not for real.
No, right now what we just did was we asked the question, how could you tell me that there's such a concept of margin of error if this is one of the chakirot? And one of the chakirot, we said that if you don't know exact, we throw out the testimony. If there's a margin of error, you have to throw it out, the testimony. So we answered no. Just like we give you the margin of error, so do we give the edim zomim, the ones that are doing the zomimim, we also give them the margin of error. So they both get the margin of error. And therefore, it actually still makes it possible to disprove witnesses. So according to Rabbi Meir, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, the person is going to make a mistake in almost 2 hours. So we're going to give it from the beginning of the first hour, right? Until the end of 5 hours. And really, be'emet, we should have actually given them before that. But nobody will come and make a mistake between night and day. Meaning night and day is so extreme, nobody makes a mistake. Right? If I'm going to come and tell you, it was at 4 o'clock in the morning or 6 or 7 o'clock, that even though it's only going to be 2-3 hours, or even if they're going to tell you 5 o'clock in the morning between 7 o'clock, that's night and day. When it switches over, that's too extreme. There, a person does not make a mistake. Okay? But according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to make it from the beginning of the first hour until the end of the 6th hour. Really, we should have given even before also more. Right? You'd bet them bet, 12b. People do not make a mistake between Yemama and Lelia, which basically means the day and the nighttime. And really, you should have given more. But again, that means the sun is in such a different position. Everyone knows between the first hour and the second hour. So it says like this, Tanan, right? We learned in the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir Omer, so now, after we just finished all of Sanhedrin, so now that we finished Sanhedrin, now we're going back. Yeah? So basically, now that we finished all of Sanhedrin, because basically we took a break. We mentioned a Mishnah until when can you eat chametz, when do you burn chametz, and all of a sudden we get into Sanhedrin. And there we got into the witnesses, when do you throw out cases, not throw out cases. Okay, fine. So tonight we learned in the Mishnah, which was the previous Mishnah that we just had. Rabbi Meir says, you're allowed to eat chametz the entire 5th hour, and then you're going to come and burn at the beginning of the 6th hour. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you could only eat until the 4th hour, and you wait the 5th hour, and you're going to burn the beginning. So again, remember, I mentioned this again yesterday, I'm going to mention it again today. According to everybody, you burn the beginning of the 6th hour. According to everybody. Nobody argues. The only question is, when do you stop eating chametz, and is there an hour of intermission in between? Abaye aliba de Rabbi Meir. According to Shitat Abaye in Shitat Rabbi Meir, the Amar en adam toev lo klum, which means that basically a person does not make a mistake, nechel kulashit. So why can't you eat the entire 6 hours as well? Which means that it should have been permitted the entire 6th hour until the time that be'emet it's going to be asur minat Torah. Which means that midoraita, you're not allowed to eat chametz only from chatzot onwards. So therefore, if it's only going to be chatzot onwards, that's at the end of the 6th hour. So therefore, why all of a sudden did you say you have to burn in the beginning of the 6th hour? Why? Even the 6th hour, you should have been permitted to come and to eat it. Okay? So he says, ulhach lishnanami, right now, also according to this girsa as well. Okay? It comes and it says, they have it outside, I just realized. Right? According to this also, that a person will make a mistake. So therefore, he's coming and says like this, according to the Girsa, which is basically, right, of Abaye b'dat Rabbi Meir, right, that a person does make a mistake in a few minutes, you should still be able to eat until the end of the seft hour, because again, the previous one, that again, there were three different shitot. There was one shita in Abaye that a person doesn't make a mistake at all in Rabbi Meir. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a person does make a mistake, right, between, I think it was a half an hour. Then the second shita of Abaye was a few minutes or an hour minus a few minutes. Then there was Rava, 2 hours minus a few minutes, or 3 hours minus a few minutes. Again, remember, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda. It was always a machlok between them. So now, according to Abaye in Rabbi Meir, that a person doesn't make a mistake at all, you should be able to eat the entire 6th hour. The entire thing was a person doesn't make a mistake at all. Meaning he's always on the clock, right? And it's always perfect. Okay, he's got it. Now, ulhach lishna, but according to the one that says, Adam to'eh b'mashu, that you do make a mistake in a few minutes, fine, but eat until the end of the 6th hour. Meaning, fine, you're right. Don't eat until 5:59, right, or whatever. I just put 5:59, but okay, obviously the 6th hour will be 11 something, whatever, 12 something, whatever, depends on the right. But the concept is don't eat until the end. Let's say 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before, do something. The Abaye liba de Rabbi Yehuda. Now, if we're also going to go according to Abaye in Rabbi Yehuda, but remember, Rabbi Meir was a more stringent opinion each time. Whether it was that a person doesn't make a mistake at all, or does a person make a mistake by a few minutes. In Rabbi Yehuda, right, he said that a person does make a mistake by half an hour or by an hour minus a few minutes. But that was all in Abaye. Remember, it was Rava that said 2 hours or 3 hours minus a few minutes. That was in Rava. In Abaye, it was either Rabbi Meir, no mistake at all, Rabbi Yehuda, a mistake of it a few minutes. Next shita in Abaye, that you, according to Rabbi Meir, you make a mistake by a few minutes, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, you make a mistake by the half an hour. That's what he's saying over here. So, sorry, the first one was by an hour minus a few minutes. An hour minus a few minutes. Yeah. So he says that's in Rava. That's in Rava, not Abaye. We're in Abaye. So he says, according to Abaye, liba de Rabbi Yehuda, that a person will come and make a mistake in half an hour. Fine. So even if you could make a discrepancy of half an hour, you could still eat in the next half an hour. Meaning, why do we go until the 6th hour? Go 6.5. Because a person can make a mistake by half an hour. Now, and if you're going to go according to the Girsa that you said, no, a person can make a mistake by an hour and a few minutes, so then at least eat until the end of the 5th hour. Why did he say until the end of the 4th hour? What's going on? So rather, Abaye answers, Amar Abaye, edut mesura lizrizim, chametz lakol masur. He says like this. He says an incredible answer. Yeah, the answer that he gives is nothing to do with limud zechut or not limud zechut. He comes and he says a very simple concept. Edut, when you want to come testimony and give testimony, you have to be quick. You have to be a person that's sharp. Yeah, that's a better word. You have to be sharp. You have to be quick. You have to be, right, hasten means that you can't just, if a person's he'll never come and give testimony. He has to be, right, he has to be there. He has to be on time. He has to be, and you see it. How many times are people witnesses that they see, whether it's a car accident or they see something? The majority of people just drive by. They don't have a person that, no, I'm here, look, the police, this is what happened. He comes, he starts giving testimony, the person has to be like that. Chametz is for every Joe Schmo. Every single human being has an isur, obviously Jews have an isur of chametz. So therefore, I cannot come and make the exact same concept by witnesses, reading the same prerequisites, and the same that's going to be, whether it's going to be by chametz. Chametz, every single person has chametz. So therefore, I have to make sure that nobody's going to make a mistake. Not you, not you, not you, not you, not anybody. Nobody can make a mistake. By Edim, I could come and I could say, listen, you want to be a witness? These are prerequisites. These are the rules. These are regulations. You know, jury duty. There have to be certain rules and regulations. It can't just be everybody. You understand? There's certain things. The second you don't qualify, that's it. But I can't do that by chametz. Chametz, everybody qualifies.
Why are we mentioning this point? In order to say that it's stringent?
Well, the reason why we're mentioning this point is to throw out everything that we just learned from now. The entire concept of edim, we just threw it in the dustbin. Everything that we just mentioned, which was half a daf or whatever it is, about the edim, about how much people are going to make a mistake, not make a mistake, throw it out. Why? Because the discrepancies that we have to do with witnesses, we cannot use to do with the discrepancies of chametz. Chametz, we have to be more strict. Why do we have to be more strict? I would have thought to say you have to be more strict by testimony. Yeah, no, exactly. The exact opposite. By chametz, we have to be more strict because it's mesura lakol. Mesura lakol means every single human being is there. And therefore, we don't want anybody to make a mistake. In testimony, we can make the margin of error smaller, right? Because at the end of the day, people are quicker. They have to be more feisty. If you come and you want to testify about something, you better know the time. You know what I'm saying? You better be attentive to what the time, what's the date, where are you, how does he look like? You have to be on top of it.
Does it have anything to do with the
And killing someone is not doraita.
I'm not.
Doraita, everything's doraita. What? Why is it Musar? Rava continues the Gemara and says, Rava liba de Rabbi Meir, and Rava, according to the Shita of Rabbi Meir, that a person will make a mistake with 2 hours less a little bit. So then for the beginning of the fifth, he shouldn't already eat. Why? Because then a person should realize that it's going to be asur for the beginning of the fifth hour already. So why did he say that there's no problem in doing that? So he comes and he says, Chamesh chama b'mizrach v'sheva chama b'ma'arav, which means if there's such a big difference between the fifth and the seventh hour, because by the fifth hour, the sun is going to be in the east. By the seventh hour, the sun is already in the west, which means, remember that, the sun starts, right, going up in the east, and it continues traveling throughout the day. By chatzot yom, it's in the middle, and then it continues going towards the west, and it sets in the west. The hour between the fifth and the seventh, 6 is still chatzot, correct? 6 is midday. So the fifth hour, it's in the east. The seventh hour, it's in the west. So there's such a big difference that people understand. So therefore, you won't make a mistake. Meaning that, right, there's no margin of error in such a thing.
It's also important to mention that we look at our watch every day.
Exactly. But they used to look at the sun, and everything was in the sun.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So says the Gemara, so 1 second. So if it's going to be like that, if the shemesh is everything, so in the 6th hour, also you should be able to eat, because it's still not in the west, which means that you're able to tell. So Amar Ravada Barava says Ravada Barava, no. Sheet yoma bekanatakai. On the 6th hour, the sun is actually in the middle. And therefore, you would make a mistake there is much more, meaning between right and left, right, you would not make a mistake. One's over here, one's over there. But the second it's in the middle, here, there's much more room of error because it's already in the middle. So for what? Is it already a little bit more inclined towards the west? Or is it still towards there? So there I'm not allowed to. Meaning in the 6th hour, I'm not allowed to because it's in the middle. Okay, so Amar Ravada Barava. Says Ravada, sorry, that was the answer. Ravada Barava, Sheet Yoma Bekarnakai. Fine. Next, the Gemara continues asking, the Rava Liba de Rabbi Yehuda, and Rava according to Rabbi Yehuda, remember, according to Rava and Rabbi Yehuda, how many hours was it? 3 hours minus a little bit. According to Rava in Rabbi Meir, it was 2 hours minus a little bit. According to Rava and Rabbi Yehuda, it was 3 hours minus a little bit. So he says, Rava Liba de Rabbi Yehuda, Damar Adam to'eh b'shalosh shaot chaser mashu, mitchilat arba lo nechol. So why are you telling me only at the end of the 4th hour? It should be the beginning of the 4th hour. Why? Because people make a mistake. So the Gemara says, Chamesh chama b'mizrach v'sheva chama b'marav v'chol sheken arba. If you already answered me previously that between the 5th and 7th hour, there's such a big difference that the sun is on the east and the sun there is going to be in the west, and that's why 5 and 7, kal v'chomer 4 and 7, there's such a big difference then, right? So obviously there's a much bigger difference. So says the Gemara, Yachiv so b'chamesh namin, so then also eat during the 5th hour. So it says the Gemara, Tirgema Abaye liba de Rava, edut mesural izrizim chametz akol mesur. The exact same answer that means the exact same answer that we answered for Abaye, we're answering the exact same answer for Rava. The exact same answer. Basically, once we put them in the corner that technically it was a good question, then they just came and they gave the same answer. But until then, we were trying to actually give answers which also made sense. But once Be'emet, you give a good question, the Be'emet, there's no answer. So then we gave the same answer, which was basically a dut was given to everybody. It was given to certain people. Chametz was given to everybody. Okay, fine. So now the Gemara is going to say, right, the Rava Amar, Rava himself is going to answer to you, not this answer, right, about Tirgema Abaye Liba de Rava, that Abaye would answer in Shitat Rava, but rather Rava himself is going to answer another answer. Lavainu Tamad Rabbi Yehuda isn't the reasoning of it's not the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda, meaning it's not because of the entire concept of, right, that for sure that maybe a person will make a mistake or not. Ella Rabbi Yehuda letameh. Rabbi Yehuda goes according to his own reasoning. Why? Rabbi Yehuda is going to say in a Mishnah later on, right? En biur chametz ella bisrefa. How do you get rid of chametz? According to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, the only way you get rid of chametz is only bisrefa. Okay, v'yayiv le rabbanan sha'achal lilkot ba etzim. So therefore, because of that, the rabbis came and they gave you an hour in order to be able to prepare to do the biur chametz. So therefore, if you're going to start asking, according to Shat Yehuda, 1 second, if he can make a mistake of the 3, so then you should be able to eat an extra hour. No, 1 second. We purposely gave you that hour in order to prepare. Because if we would tell you now that you're allowed to eat during that hour, you would have to come, burn it, and there's no time to prepare the burning. And again, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you need to burn it. There's no other way of getting rid of it. So because of that, that's what you're saying. That's Rabbi Yehuda le'tameh. Rabbi Yehuda going according to his reason. So Ravina is going to ask a question now on Rava. Etve Ravina le'Rava, comes Ravina and he asks a question to Rava. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, Matai, when do we do biur chametz shelo b'shat biuro? Right? When a person comes to burn the chametz before the time, aval b'shat biuro, but during the time of the biur chametz, hashbatato b'chol davar, you could do whatever you want. Which means, even if you don't have wood, right? What's the big deal? All you have to do is you could wait until Shab Biuro and get rid of it another way. Meaning, okay, fine, Rabbi Yehuda says the lechatechila is burning. Lechatechila is burning. But technically speaking, I could get rid of it whatever way. I could throw it in the sea. I could flush it down the toilet. I could do whatever I want. So, well, 1 second. So says the Gemara, so 1 second, if I'm allowed to do that, so you're right. Beforehand, I should come and burn it. But b'shat biuro, I could do whatever I want. So if I could do whatever I want, so now I don't need an hour. So says the Gemara, no, Elam Rava, but rather Rava says, Gezerah mishum yom meunan. This is a gezerah that the rabbis made because of a cloudy day, which means when you can't see the sun. So since I can't see the sun, we're going to come and we're going to make it. So it says the Gemara, if you're already making a doubt because of the day, it's a cloudy day, so you can't see the sun. So already make it earlier. So it says, no, Amanav Papa, arba zman seuda lakolhi. Right? The 4th hour is the time when you're eating, right, your Fruit Loops. Yeah, what happens is the guy, he comes and he starts eating. If your stomach is calling, it means that this is the time that you're actually coming and you're actually hungry. So therefore, you already know when the 4th hour is because your bodily needs are calling you, right? Some people I know that they already tell me, my bed is calling me. What does that mean, right? There's a few people that all the time, their bed is calling them. You understand? It's incredible. I've never heard a bed calling you, but what does that mean? It's very, very simple. It means that the body, Yeah. No, it's a saying that people say. My bed is calling me.
Look at the Rashi on that one.
On which one?
What you just said, because it was funny.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what it says. Zman suda lekolhi ve'akol bekimba. Everybody's bekim. Everybody knows. Why? Because meaning it's like lunch, right? Some people they could work, but if they have a fixed time of meal, let's say right now lunch, or let's say in schools. In schools usually lunch is 12 o'clock. In works usually it's at 1 o'clock, right? If at 1 o'clock every single day you have lunch, trust me, I could take your watch and I'm going to take away your phone and I'm going to take away the computer and I'm going to take away everything that you don't have the time. At 1 o'clock, your stomach is calling you. You understand? Right? So the exact same concept. The concept is that since it's a time which is basically the 4th hour, the time of eating, everyone knows when the 4th hour is. So you don't have to worry.
The Pavlov reflex.
What's it called?
Pavlov, the dog, he used to use them to bring them at a certain time food, and when this time comes, they start to have saliva and so on. So it's called the test of Pavlov.
Okay, so that's a test. That's okay.
Pavlov
there you go.
reflex.
Thank you, doctor. No, very good. No, so that means that's how we know the concept. Very good. Fine. So he says now like this, right? Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita, Shari Shona Ma'achal Ludim. The first hour in the day is Ma'achal Ludim. These are people that they eat, they're cannibals. They eat human beings. And therefore, since they eat so much, right, they come and they try to eat the earliest hour as possible. Shniya, the second hour is Ma'achal Listim. Why? Because basically, since they were awake the entire nighttime, right? So then what happens is they start sleeping during the day. So therefore, they're going to come, they're going to eat Seudash Shniya. And the second one, that means when they wake up, they were up during the night. They go to sleep, and then they wake up, and they're already hungry. So therefore, they're going to come, and they're going to eat the second hour. So the 3rd hour is Machal Yoshim. People that basically, they have a lot of money, and they don't have to work for Parnasah, so they could eat in the 3rd hour. The Revit Machal Polim, the 4th hour is the Machal that everyone eats. Chamishit, the 5th hour is Machal Tamidei Chachamim, right? He says, Shishit Machal Kol Adam. So you see here, it's very interesting, because who's Kol Adam? You understand? Because, right, well, exactly. If you already had Poalim, you have the Yorshim, you have the Tamidei Chachamim, so who's Kol Adam? So says the Gemara, V'amar of Papa, I would say it's Poalim. Says the Gemara, V'amar of Papa says, Revi'it, Zman Zeudah Lakol. I thought you told me that the fourth hour was everybody, right? Not only just Poalim, right? So says, you're right. Revi'it is Ma'achal Kol Adam, and the Chamishit is Ma'achal Poalim, and Shishit is Ma'achal Tamidei Chachamim. So the fourth is of human beings. The fifth is Poalim, the ones that workers, because they have to wait an extra hour. And then the sixth is Tamidei Chachamim. Mikam va'elach, onwards is kezorek even lechemet. It's like you're throwing a stone, right, inside of a sackcloth of ore, of leather, which means, which we're going to see whether it means that it doesn't help or doesn't, or does help or doesn't help. Okay, fine. So now says the Gemara as follows. Amar, right? Amar Ravashi. Ravashi comes and he says, yeah, he says as follows. Yeah. Yeah, Amar Ravashi, ke machloket be'edut, kach machloket bechametz. Comes the Gemara now says like this: the exact same machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda to do with edut is the exact same machloket to do with chametz, right? That means just like the machloket tanaim is to do with, right, how much does a person make a mistake, so too it's the same thing. So says the Gemara, 1 second, pshita, haynu hach ta'amninan. That's exactly what we tried to say in order to come, right, and answer up the two machlokot. So Hakamash Malan, this comes to teach you, Shinuye de Shaninan Shinuyahu. The tirutzim that we said in order to answer up the tirutzim is be'emet, they're truthful answers. Velo tema tanaihi, and we're not just going to say that it's a machloket tanaim. It means we're not just going to say that it's a machloket tanaim. What are the deot between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda? But rather, it's actually be'emet. It's true, right? They're machloket between them. Which means, what does that mean? It means to just like we had the margin of error to do with testimony, so to do with chametz. Rabbi Yehuda says that we're going to bring it before the achilato midrabanan more than Rabbi Meir, because again he's got a bigger margin of error, right? But each one of them just says, right, to do with chametz, right, you're going to make it smaller just because of choshesh be'edut, which means like this: the machloke between them is correct, and that's why if you realize Rabbi Yehuda, right, he comes and he says that you have to actually eat it, you have to stop eating earlier. Why? Because he said the margin of error was bigger to do with testimony. Rabbi Meir, that he said the margin of error was smaller in testimony. So that's why also the margin of error by a regular human being is smaller. And that's why he said you could eat it for a longer period of time. Okay?
It's completely the opposite.
Exactly, the completely opposite.
One says because it was
the exact opposite. Exactly.
Wow. So in this case, he says because in the testimony the margin of error was big. That's Rabbi Yehuda.
So therefore, by chametz, I have to make it a bigger margin of error. So more stringent.
No, he gives you
I have to give you more an hour earlier that you have to stop eating chametz.
I can go until the end.
That means Rabbi Meir is more lenient. One more time, who's more lenient?
No, this time it's different.
Yes.
Which one?
Usually, Rabbi Meir is not lenient. But here is more lenient.
Where's here and where's there?
Okay,
one more time. Let me explain one more time. Very, very simple, right? Very simple. Let me get to chametz first. In chametz, we say until when are you allowed to eat chametz? Rabbi Meir says you're allowed to eat chametz until the end of the fifth hour, and then you're going to come and you're going to burn it.
Which is what time?
End of the fifth hour. It doesn't matter what time it is.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. And then you burn at the beginning of the 6th hour. Rabbi Yehuda says 1 hour earlier, right? That's 10 o'clock. You have an extra hour of tolin, whether it was that you're preparing the wood, whatever you want, but you have tolin. Tolin just means you don't do anything with it. And then, right, you're going to come, the 10 to 11. And then the extra hour later. And then you burn it. Again, according to everybody, we're going to burn it at the 6th hour. Let's pretend the 6th hour is at 12 o'clock. Okay? So everybody says you burn it at 12.
Okay.
According to Rabbi Yehuda, 11 to 12, you're preparing wood. 10 to 11, you're eating. According to Rabbi Meir, 11 to 12, you're eating. 12, you burn it. So who's more stringent? Rabbi Yehuda. Why is Rabbi Yehuda more stringent? Why does he say you have to finish eating chametz?
That's what we said.
Right?
Because over there is more leniency.
Exactly. There's more margin of error.
Yes.
Since there's more margin of error. So here, that's why Rabbi Yehuda is more stringent.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, very good. Okay, so we were saying the same thing. Perfect. Very good. So says the Gemara. Yeah. Amar Ravashi. Yes, usually yes. Amar Shimi Barashi says of Shimi Barashi, Loshanu ela b'shaot. This is only talking about in hours. Meaning the Mishnah Sanhedrin was talking about that there's going to be a difference right? Whether it's like, right? He's saying over here, like, the entire concept of difference. Lo shanu ela b'shaot. What does that mean? Right? It says over here like this. He's saying that we're talking about the Nishan and Sanhedrin. So he's saying there's going to be such a small difference between the witnesses, is talking about the amount of the hours that they're there. So for example, one person said it's this time, and the other one said a few hours, whether it's before or afterwards. That was the machloka between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir until when is the margin of error. So that means like this. If I come and I tell you it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you tell me it's 11 or even 12, or I told you it's 9 o'clock and you tell me 11 or 12, so then that's a machloka between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara though, Rav Shimi Barashi says, well, what happens if I tell you it's before the nets and you say it's after the nets? He says, according to that, for sure it's batel.
Yeah, because of the light.
Very good. Because of the light. That means it's something that you don't make a mistake on.
There's a physical
right?
change.
There's a change. There's something recognizable that you could see.
obvious.
It's discernible. Yeah? So says the Gemara, Pshita, obviously. Says the Gemara, no, you're right. Ela echad omer kodem hanetzachama, ve'echad omer betoch hanetzachama. We're not talking about before and after. One of them was saying before nets, and the other one was saying was during nets. So then it's bit betela. So it's like hanami pshita. It's also pshita. At the end of the day, you see the nets. You see it happening before nets and nets. You see it. Nets means that the sun is coming up. So it means even though I say betocha nets, I see it. Yeah. So he says mau de tema. I would have thought to say tarvayu chada minta kamri. They're both trying to say the same thing. The had the kamar and the one that said right to Gimel 13:1 betocha netzachama begiluya avakai. When he says betoch netzachama, he's talking about right benoga, which is before the netzachama. The zahure behalma hu dechaz, and he's just seeing light. Kamashmalan comes to teach you that a person does not make such a mistake, and therefore it is going to become batel. And Amar of Nachman Amarav says of Nachman Amarav, halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha is going to be like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so therefore that's how we're actually paskening. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that on the 5th hour it's tolim, and we don't eat it. So we're actually stringent on hilchot chametz. That means we're not allowed to eat it. That means that we have that extra hour, which is in the middle. Okay? And by the way, that's halacha l'maaseh also. Okay? Amar le Rava le Rav Nachman, says Rava to Rav Nachman, the name amor halacha k'Rabbi Meir. Right? The satam lantana kavate. 1 second. Why don't we say that the halacha, right? Why don't we say that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir? The satam lantana kavate. That at the end of the day, stam tana is like him. The Tanam, as we learned on the Mishnah, kol sha'a shemutar le'echol ma'achil. Yeah, any single hour that you're permitted to eat, right? You're going to give the animal, right? You're allowed to give to the animal to eat, which means it's mashma from here that during the time when the chametz is not going to be mutar ma'achila, you're not allowed to give it to your animal to eat, which that's like Rabbi Meir. So therefore, since halacha is that usually we always go like a stam mishnah, we should have passed like Rabbi Meir. You understand? That means we should have gone like Rabbi Meir, not like Rabbi Yehuda. Why did you just tell me the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? We should have gone like Rabbi Meir. Stam tana kavate, which means we pass in stam in the mishnah like Rabbi Meir. So we should have gone like Rabbi Meir. Says the Gemara, no. Hahi lav stamahu. It's not a stam mishnah. Mishum de kashya mutar. There's the Gemara there is going to ask from the question mutar. What does that mean? Kol shash mutar. So therefore, since we have to actually ask what is the mutar over there, it's not stam that we're going like Rabbi Meir, because we're not actually going like that. So says the Gemara, what? Which means from the fact that over there it said in Mishnah, Kol shash mutar lechol chametz ma'achil lebemto, that as long as the chametz is mutar to eat, you're allowed to give to your animal. And therefore, since the Gemara there, we had a question about mutar. So in order to ask it, right, in order to explain it, we had to explain the Mishnah, like Rabbi Gamliel, which is making differentiation between chulin and truma to do the zman of the Yisur Achila of Chametz and Pesach. So therefore, that's why we're saying that it's not a stam like Rabbi Meir. It's not a stam Mishnah like Rabbi Meir. So if there's no proof that we go like Rabbi Meir, if there's no proof that we go like Rabbi Meir, we don't do it. So says the Gemara, v'neima mor alachak Rabbi Gamliel, tavale machriya. So why don't we pass like Rabbi Gamliel? Rabbi Gamliel, he's a machriya, which means like this. You have a machloket on two sides of the spectrum. You have Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. So why don't we just say that what? Why don't we just say that it's going to be like Rabbi Gamliel? Rabbi Gamliel, by the halachas, kedivrei machriya. What does that mean? When you come and you have a person that says A, and you say B, I have a person in the middle. And the person in the middle, he's machriya between them. So what? Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel, he's a machriya. Machriya means that he's going to decide between both of them. So says the Gemara, the halacha should be like divrei machriya. Machriya is Rabbi Gamliel. So says the Gemara, right, as follows. So says the Gemara, Amar le Rabbi Gamliel lav machriyahu. He says Ramam Gamliel is not considered a machriya. What Ramam Gamliel is not considered a machriya. What does that mean? He's not considered a machriya. Tam de nafshe kamar. He's coming and he's giving his own opinion. Meaning there's a difference. A machriya means I take one opinion, second opinion, and I make like a pshara. I make a compromise, or I come and I say, you know what? I think that it should be like this. You understand? Somebody wanted to finish now. A person wanted to finish in 20 minutes. I'm going to come and say, we're going to finish in 10 minutes. That's called machriya. However, though, here, he's not a machriya. He's just giving his own opinion. So it's like a third opinion. It's not a machriya. Machriya means I come and I try to make between them. Here, no, he's just giving his own opinion. For you can answer another answer. Rav, the Amar Ki Aitan, Rav is saying like this Tana. What does that mean? Rav was the one that said the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, correct? Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav, halacha Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara is answering, Rav, Rav goes like this Tana. The Tana was learned in a Braita. What happens if the 14th comes out on Shabbat? Which year does that happen? This year. So if the 14th comes out on Shabbat, what are you supposed to do? You destroy all the chametz before Shabbat. You're going to burn trumat tmeah, teluyot, right? V'tehorot, right? Teluyot v'tehorot. You're going to burn everything. But you're only going to leave over bread, food, for 2 seudot, right? In order to eat until the 4th hour. Correct? That's what we do. Exactly what we do. That's what we spoke about. Exactly. These are the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Yehuda ish bar Tota that he said in the name of Rabbi Yoshua. Amrulo, the Chachamim told him, Tehorot lo yisarfu be'erev Shabbat. You're not going to burn the trumot tehorot on erev Shabbat. Why? Shema yimatzu le'nochel. Maybe people are going to eat them. Meaning, trumat tehorah, you're not allowed to burn trumat tehorah for no reason. Remember, trumat has to be eaten by a kohen, but you're not allowed to burn it for no reason. If it becomes tameh, you're allowed to burn it. You have to burn it. But unless that, you're not allowed to burn it for no reason. Here, why are you going to burn it on erev Shabbat? Maybe somebody will eat it on Shabbat. Obviously, it has to be a kohen, but maybe somebody's going to eat it. Amar lehen, Rabbi Elazar comes and he tells him, Kvar bikshu velo matzu. What are you talking about? They were looking for people to eat it, and nobody wanted to eat it, so they have to burn it. Amrulo, they said, yeah, but 1 second. Shema chutza chomalanu. He says, maybe it's outside of the city, which means maybe there's kohanim orchim, that they're going to come on Lil Shabbat, and then they're going to come in, they're going to eat it. So why are you going to burn it for a reason? Amar lahem, so Rabbi Elazar told them, ledivrechem, and according to you, don't even burn truma which is truya. Why? Shema yavo Eliyahu. Maybe Eliyahu Navi is going to come. And he's going to make it pure. Amrulo, they said, Kvar muftach len Israel. It's already a certain to Israel. She'en Eliyahu ba lo be'arvei Shabbatot velo be'arvei yamim tovim mipnei haTorah. Eliyahu Navi zachula tov. Eliyahu Navi does not come on Erev Shabbat and Erev Yom Tov. Why doesn't Eliyahu Navi come on Erev Shabbat and Erev Yom Tov? Mipnei haTorah. Because of the tircha, which means it would be too difficult for us. We're preparing for Shabbat and Yom Tov. How are we going to accept Eliyahu Navi now to come and to bring the Mashiach? It's impossible. So we already know on Erev Shabbat and Erev Yom Tov, Eliyahu Navi does not come. If you remember when we gave a shiur, that was the reason why there was a certain group that they didn't say Hoshienu on Friday.
When does he not come?
Erev Shabbat and Erev Yom Tov. You remember we brought it down from, I think it was David Tzabach and other people as well, that they said on Yom Shishi, right? And right, Meshech Hayom, and that's Pesach. We're not talking about Pesach. We're talking about Erev Yom Tov. Erev Yom Tov and Erev Shabbat. We're not talking about on Shabbat or Yom Tov, but we're talking about Erev. Erev Shabbat and Erev Yom Tov, Eliyahu Navi does not come. Why? Because of Tircha. And that's why that was what I brought down, I think it was Rabbi David Tzabach, that he said that the minhag of certain places in Morocco was not to say Hoshienu on Fridays, which means they would do Shir Shalom Yom Shishi B'Shabbat or Hashishi, whichever you want, and then they would finish. There was no Hoshienu. Why? Because when you're saying Hoshienu, that's to save us and all that. That's to ask for the Mashiach to come. Mashiach does not come today. Erev Shabbat, not today. Today's Thursday, but meaning tomorrow, Shabbat, the Mashiach does not come. Why? Mashiach cannot come Erev Shabbat and Erev Yom Tov. If come Motzei Shabbat, Motzei Yom Tov. That's how we do Eliyahu Navi and all those things on Motzei Shabbat, right? That the Vasarenu Goel and all those things, but not on Erev Shabbat and Erev Yom Tov. So therefore, what is he coming to say? He's coming to say, so there's this ta'ana that you said about Eliyahu Navi is not a good ta'ana. But there was a good question that you still asked. The question that you asked is, why are you coming to burn Trumat Tehorah on Erev Shabbat? That come because remember, this is the 13th on Erev Shabbat. Because Shabbat came out, Shabbat was the 14th, which is Erev Pesach. He says, why are you burning it? Maybe a Kohen will come from outside of the city. He's going to eat it. You said, well, also Trumat Luya. Why? Trumat Luya means that I don't know if it's Tameh or Tahor. So I shouldn't burn it either, because maybe Eliyahu is going to come and he's going to tell me it was pure and I didn't need to burn it. So says the Gemara, that for sure is not going to happen. Why is it for sure not going to happen? Because he doesn't come on Erev Shabbat, so he's not going to come. So Amrulo, they said, Lo zazu misham ad shekavu alacha ki Rabbi Elazar ben Yehuda ish partota shama mishum Rabbi Yeshua. They didn't move from there until they paskin the halacha, like Rabbi Elazar ben Yehuda ish partota, that he said in the name of Yeshua, right? Which is what? What did he say? He said that if it comes out on like this year, what are you supposed to do? You burn everything at Shabbat, even the trumot temeot, tluyot, v'teorot. You burn everything except for 2 seudot that you need for Friday night and Shabbat morning, right? That's all that you do. Okay, that's the words of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda ish partota. So says the Gemara, my love afilu lechol, or we're not talking about that the kavanah is that the halacha like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda, that even to eat the chametz, and there he's paskening like Rabbi Yehuda. Because there, what did he say? He said, in the middle over there, he said, mazon kedei lechol ad arba shaot. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda ish partota. Arba shaot. Who was the one that said arba shaot? Rabbi Yehuda. Because Rabbi Meir said you could still eat the 5th hour. Until the 5th hour, you're still allowed to eat. So that's why we paskin like him. We don't paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Yehuda ish partota that instead of Yeshua to do with the soft time of chametz, to do with biur chametz. What chametz do you burn? So you burn all types of chametz. Trumat teora, trumat temeah, and tolin, tluya. All those things you burn. You burn everything. You understand that? Yes, that we paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Yehuda ish partota, but not to do with the end time of the chametz. Rebbe savar lehad Rav Nachman. So says the Gemara, 1 second. Even a Rebbe holds like this Rav Nachman. Why? The Amar Ravim Baravada says Ravim Baravada. Maaseh b'adam echad shivki diski amelech chametz etz Yochanan chakukah. Right. What happened was that there was a person that he gave a pikadon, he gave a security, right? That was basically an amtachat kfula full of chametz. So he gave like a bag full of chametz to Yochanan chakukah. V'nikvu achbarim, and the achbarim came and they made a hole in it. The chametz, and then the chametz was coming out, and it was Erev Pesach. So he came in front of Rebbe, right? So b'shari shona malo, the first hour he said M10. Wait, maybe the owners are going to come before the Yisur chametz, and then they're going to take it, and they're going to eat it. Shnia, the second hour, he told them wait. Third hour, he told them M10 wait. The Revit, he told them to wait. Chamishit amarlo, the 5th hour, he went and he said, go out and sell it. Go out and sell it. My love lenochrim, are we not talking about that you're selling it to the goyim? And that's like Shitat Rabbi Yehuda because already now you can't eat it? Amar Rav Yosef says, no. The Israel, he's selling it to a Jew to eat it. And this is like the Shita of Rabbi Meir. Okay? Fine. So we're going to stop over here. We continue tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem.